Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA, and I'm your host, Andre Natera. Today I'm joined by two experts in the knife world. Don Smolik from Study the Blade, a professional knife sharpener, and Kolter Livengood, a professional knife maker, former chef. We break down proper knife maintenance, sharpening technique, and everything you need to know to keep your blades performing at the highest level. And stay tuned. At the end of this episode, we have a full sharpening tutorial from start to finish. If you're listening on audio only and you want to catch the demo, check out the YouTube or the Spotify version. Stay tuned. ChefWorks is the gold standard for workwear. In the kitchen and beyond, with millions of wearers globally, they are the largest and most trusted culinary apparel brand in the world. For over 30 years, ChefWorks has been crafting performance workwear designed by industry experts, tested in the toughest kitchens, and trusted by the biggest names in the business. Whether you're just getting started in the kitchen or a seasoned professional, mom and pop to leading franchise, ChefWorks has the gear and uniform program built for you. Find out how ChefWorks works for you. Save 20% on your order with our exclusive discount code. Just enter Chef's PSA 20 at checkout. You know, the steel has the guard.
Yeah.
Right? And it's there to prevent you. And I've never seen anyone, other than this one time in my career, someone hit themselves with the using a steel with the guard.
Oh, I did.
You have?
Oh, yes.
What happened?
So the restaurant we worked at was super fancy, and guests could pay like $500 to experience a day in the kitchen. And those are always extremely stressful days for us because, you know, working that fast and with all that stress, and you had to just bury it really deep down when someone had a glass of Chardonnay in their hands and like, oh, what are you working on? So we're all playing it up to give them a good time. And I have my honing rod in my left hand, and I'm kind of looking back talking to her, and I grab my petty and I grab an 11-inch slicer. So when I come down at the angle, it goes right into my thumb.
Ooh.
And I just like covered it, like wasn't any blood spurt or anything. And I said, oh, hold on, I'll be right back. And I went back to the 3-pot sink, and the chef came over because he saw what I was doing. And I like opened my thumb up, and you could see my joint. Like, oh, this is really bad, and we're busy. And he's like, well, we're going to, I said, I'm going to personally take you over to the emergency room. But the entire time that he took me there, he made me keep my hand above my head like I had a question in class.
Yeah.
Just to shame me. Like, it wasn't worse enough that the dude in the kitchen that had the nicest knives and hopefully the best knife skills, because I was the knife guy, had to walk around like this for like 2 hours in the ER and then come back and finish prep.
Hand raised, fucking.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, it's wild. I joke around on Chef's PSA, and I'll say a knife's not really yours until it cuts you. It's like marking its territory. It's like whenever you're really comfortable with the knife, and all chefs fucking nick themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter how long you've been, like you'll nick yourself. But I notice I nick myself when it's a different knife most of the time. It's like when I pick up something that I haven't ever used, like, hey, can I borrow your knife? And it's like one of these bad boys here, and I'm gonna cut chives, and like, oh, there goes the tip of my finger with the chives. Yeah, but these are beautiful knives, by the way.
Thank you.
What do you got going on here?
So
For people that are audio only, there's 4 knives right here on the table. This is a good time to switch to video. So if you're on Apple and you can only listen, and go to Spotify or YouTube so you can see.
So these are obviously highly customizable one-of-one types of chef's knives. And a big part of my inspiration is like hypercar lines. So that's where a lot of the materials and the quick angles, you know, some of them are carbon steel. Like this is a 80 Crew Forge V carbon with a carbon Damascus in the center. And then it has a very fancy marbled carbon fiber handle. And this is a custom commission that I'm making for my boss because I'm an electrical contractor now. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I try to keep in mind the person's strengths that I'm making it for. Mm-hmm. Like this is specifically made for someone that cooks at home, so it's more simple. It's not as aggressive. It's not huge and long. It's not dangerous. But then these I just kind of make hoping someone's going to want to buy it because, you know, using these materials and just kind of letting them form themselves into a basic idea of what I have.
And for people that are listening, and they can't see, what are the three types of, or 4 types of knives that we have here?
So
the first one that you spoke about,
I'd say this one is a chef knife. This one's kind of like an in-between petty chef. I mean, most people, this is a chef, but I think a chef knife is at least 10 inches. Anything smaller is more of like a line knife, in my opinion. This is kind of a hybrid sand.
Man inches or knife inches? No.
Depends on what you judge yourself by.
Imperial or metric?
This one's kind of a hybrid cleaver Santoku, but with a chef knife tip, very tall. It's got a hollow grind above the bevel, which not only makes it a little bit lighter, but helps it pass through the product with less friction. And then I also have a sujihiki, or a meat slicer, as the Americans would call it. And this is with a new steel that a company called Pop's Knife Supply developed with like the godfather of American metallurgy, at least like now. And it's a high carbon steel that's low alloy, but it gets extremely hard. It's very easy to work with, and is a little bit less reactive.
It's a beast.
Yeah, these are all very beautiful. I love all of them. You posted something yesterday, I think, and it was a shun knife that has like the scalloped edges.
Oh God, yeah.
You said this is the fucking worst knife that's ever been invented. What is that knife for, anyways?
It's kind of like a weird hybrid, like petty serrated for like bread and tomatoes and God knows what else, but it's the dumbest design I've ever
fucking
seen.
Stupid.
And because you can't sharpen it really, like because the scallops are so rounded and waved, you have to like do a very light technique on sharpening because you can't really recut serrations in it because it's really not serrated. It's like waved. So I don't know. It's one of those things that like I just hate Shun brand knives.
Why? Why do you hate Shun? The audience, all the culinary school students listening right now, they have
right now.
Hearts just
like they just bought the entire set, chef.
I think from my perspective as a sharpener, literally like 85% of Shun knives that I get are typically chipped in some sort of fashion. So I don't know what they do with the heat treatment, but they're just very brittle.
Yeah, I agree.
And they do a good job marketing it to mass. And so it's kind of like people's, a lot of home cooks and early chefs like intro into like nice Japanese knives. But they just are poor quality from my perspective compared to knives that you can get that are equal in price and like way better steel and better design. So
there was a point in time in the US where I feel like everyone was using like a Henkel's, a Mercer, a Victorinox, and trying to think who else was big at the time, Wusthof. And we all used these heavy German knives. And then when Shun came on the market, it was like this was at least, and I'm talking general. Of course, there's restaurants on the fringe like we've always been using the gangster shit. But there was a point in time like maybe I'll call it like 2005 when Shun kind of came on the market, and it was like, oh, everyone wanted a Shun. Yeah. I know I bought one. I fucking dropped it and tip chipped off. But I just remember like that was a lot of in the United States. That was the first introduction to Japanese knives for a lot of chefs. And then I feel like shortly after that there was this big explosion of Japanese knives. So I guess my question is for both of you, and you guys can answer it. Whoever would like to take this. What is the big difference between Japanese style knives and German style knives or Western style knives?
I can start. It's typically like design in metals. Japanese style, you're going to have typically higher carbon steel content. Carbon steel holds a better edge. It's a harder steel than, say, a stainless that a lot of German knives are made from. There's pros and cons on both sides. Carbon steel gets harder, has nice edge retention, but it's also more brittle because it's harder. Whereas German steel is a little bit softer, has a little bit more durability, I would say. But also softer steel is harder to sharpen, harder to maintain, and it also kind of loses edge a little quicker. Now there's a lot of middle ground now, especially in Japanese making, where they are doing a lot of carbon core and like a stainless laminate on the outside. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you get a really hard core interior steel wrapped in stainless. So you kind of get that edge from carbon and the easy maintenance from stainless. And I'm not exactly sure like why. I'm sure it's just like access to metals, and initially is why a lot of German steels were made out of stainless, and it could have been more around easy maintenance for chefs and home cooks in Europe that were getting chef knives now once the kind of restaurant boom happened a long time ago. Whereas on the Japanese side, every knife was super hyper specified and had a certain job typically. So you had a fish knife, you had a chicken knife, you had a all-purpose knife, and you only used them for those things. Whereas, German, European style knives started coming out, and they were, you had one knife for all of it.
your chef's knife,
So
your paring knife,
correct.
serrated, and maybe a slicer.
Yeah, so they made a more durable knife because it was doing a lot of different things, whereas like my Deba's only breaking down fish, and it's the only thing I use it for.
Yeah.
From a Japanese perspective.
Or my bird's beak paring knife was only used for tournay, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do you even use that bird's beak for? I guess like clean coring tomatoes, tournay.
Yeah,
that's what we used to
that's
use
really it.
back in the day.
We used to have to peel green asparagus with.
Yeah,
green knife.
like collar it.
Well, he would expect us to take the skin off without removing the green underneath it. So when we're talking about like 60 heads of asparagus for 30 dishes a night, that job could take almost an hour.
Yeah.
And if you screwed it up, you were redoing it during service. And nothing is more stressful from it than that.
That sounds fun.
And I think I tried to do it the other day with a knife that I made. I'm like, man, I'm washed. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Game.
I was talking with Amanda Rockman. She was on the podcast, and we were talking about how I used to make my cooks do like brunoise like all day long, especially when they would get hired. Like, okay, you're new, boom, you're going to brunoise for 8 hours until you're really good at it, and then tomorrow, guess what you're doing? Fucking brunoise again. And it was like perfect brunoise, like petal by petal, each onion.
Right.
Make sure everything is perfect. And what am I going to do with it? I was like, fucking soup, right? It's going in the puree. It's going in something. It's like, I don't really need the brunoise. I need you to get good.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a meat pie, and I decided I was doing a pork meat pie, and I decided to brunoise the celery root and the carrots and the onions, the way I would. And I was like, why the fuck did I make people? I was like, fuck, I forgot how hard this is. This is fucking silly. They'd be laughing at me right now, looking at how much my skills have eroded.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I'll say that for a young cook that is doing a lot of brunoise, something you really need to understand that if you get into high carbon steel knives and you brunoise red onion, they will turn brown and black.
Yeah.
The onions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they will react with create an oxide layer on the carbon steel, which will transfer to the onion. Now, if it's something that you're cooking, that oxide will like disappear, like if you were to saute them or sweat them or something. But if like we had a lot of caviar go out, and it was all, just the past yolks, the past whites through a tammy.
Yeah.
And then a lot of like perfect, chives and red onion. And I had just gotten probably my first carbon steel knife, and I had spent 30 minutes doing a 9-pan of like the most pristine, like even I would fillet the red onion to get them the size of the square that I was going to make, every single one. And 30 minutes later, I look in that pan and they're fucking black. And I don't think there's anything worse than that.
Yeah.
No, that's just a heart drop. Yeah.
So stainless for your.
Did you go up to chef and say, Chef, I think there's something wrong with the onions?
No.
I forgot bad onions.
I shit in the garbage and did it behind his back. He's like, why are you doing those again? I was like, I think I need a little bit more.
Yeah. That's too funny. Yeah. Since we kind of touched a little bit on the difference between Japanese knives and Western style German knives. If you're a new cook, what do you recommend people typically start with? I'll tell you what I tell people, and I'd love to know if you agree or disagree. But from my stance, when I was training cooks, and I might change my stance on this now. I would say start out with German knives. It's a little heavier. It's a little safer. And then as you get better, transition to a Japanese knife, because if you start out when you don't know what you're doing, like you're going to take some fingertips off pretty quickly with those Japanese knives. They're fucking razor sharp. And so it's like, start out here with training wheels, graduate over here to, training wheels free. That's always been my perspective, but I'm curious if you guys agree or disagree with that.
Well, you can find Japanese handmade knives that are in the price point of a German knife. And I think it's important to find something that is going to let you execute the job that you're doing nicely. And if you first start with the Henkels and you have that like really wavy, there's no flat on the blade, you're going to find yourself not being able to do the skills that you maybe want to do. And if you can get something for the same price that has a better profile, regardless if it like cuts better or sharpens as well, I think getting used to something that's going to be in your future. You don't buy like a weird looking guitar if you want to learn how to play a good acoustic guitar. You're just going to buy a cheaper acoustic guitar. And if you can get one that's going to do the job and get you used to that shape and how to hold it and how to sharpen it, I think that's what I would recommend. But just understand that the very first knife you have, you need to learn to sharpen it immediately and you will destroy it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And part of the reason why I recommend the German knives or a less expensive knife is because when you're young, you don't really appreciate the value of it getting stolen yet.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. Happens a lot in kitchens. You don't want to spend $1,000 on your first knife ever, and then boom, the line cook that's been eyeing it, like, oh, where'd you get that? Right, that's mine. Oh, I don't know what happened. So and so is using it.
Someone's using it.
Or you don't know how to maintain the steel, or you drop it and it, you chip it, and then you like, I would say learn how to understand a knife before you go spend a lot of money on a knife.
Yeah.
That's part of why I say what I say.
Yeah, and like you said, you can find really good comparable pricing on Japanese knives that are lower maintenance, but still really high quality, like Mac, for example, or Misono. Pretty sure both of them are like Swedish steel, but made in Japan. So really high quality product. And I think a chef knife runs like $100, $120 maybe for those. So pretty comparable to a Henkel's. I think like from German knife perspective, like I try to tell people to avoid anything that has like a full bolster all the way to the heel. And if you watch any of my videos, you know that I fucking hate full bolsters because they are a pain in the ass to sharpen. And what happens over time is you start to get a little wave hook that Kolter was talking about.
And those like notoriously Henkel's and
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every Henkel's knife I could imagine in my brain right now has a full bolster.
Yeah. And they're just a pain in the ass. So
Yeah.
try to stay away from those. And there's a lot of other German brands that will make them without them that you can find. I think from like a performance and just design perspective, if you can find one without a full bolster, that's typically the best way to go. That's also just going to last you a lot longer overall.
What are okay, so what are some of the rules of the kitchen? Like if we're solving the world's problems, we're like Cook 101. Here's what you need to know when you walk into a kitchen for the first time. These are the rules when it comes to chef's knives. What are some of those rules? Like
have a sharp knife.
Have a sharp knife, right? That's like step one.
That's how I learned to sharpen. I was working in a kitchen and I was like breaking down brisket and pork shoulder for this like meatball dish we had. And I was naive. I didn't know. I was young. I was just kind of going through and cutting and everything. And my sous chef could see I was struggling. He's like, what the fuck's going on? And I was like, I'm breaking this down, chef. He's like, your knife is dull as shit. And I was like, I don't know. So he like kind of showed me the basics on how to sharpen on whetstones. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it clicked. I was like, man, like I've been a fool for so long. And that kind of kicked off my like obsession with knife sharpening.
What are some other laws that should be like, don't touch my knives, always ask?
Always ask.
Yeah. Don't put them in the
don't put them in the dish pit.
Yeah. Don't put them in the sink, especially like for the dishwasher that's unaware.
Yeah. Super dangerous.
Yeah. You lose a finger that way.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
Don't put your whole knife roll on your station.
Right. Honestly, my thing is like, don't take out all the knives. Especially like when you're a young cook, you have like a whole roll with like 100 things, 100 gadgets. Like take them all out. Like you're only going to use your chef knife today. Yeah, that's probably the only thing you need on your station.
Yeah,
half sheep hand.
Yeah,
whatever you can fit on there, that should be what you have.
Yeah, and when it comes to like, I'll tell you my recommendation. I'm curious if you all agree. For most jobs, you probably only need 3 knives. You need a chef knife, a petty knife, maybe a serrated. Sometimes for artichokes or something a little bit peeling a root vegetable or something like that. Yeah. Outside of that, and maybe a honing rod or steel. Right. That's probably all you need for most things.
For most things, yeah,
for most things. Of course, if you're butchering fish all day, you might need a deba or a slicer of some sort. But if you're a sushi chef, obviously you have some specialized skills. But for the most part, I think 90% of the jobs that you're going to encounter in most kitchens, you probably just need a good chef knife, petty, and serrated. You guys agree with that?
Totally.
I agree. The only thing I'll say is the more edge you have, the longer it's going to stay sharp.
From like a length perspective?
Yeah. So if you have, the more knives you have, the longer they're going to stay sharp until you have time to sharpen them at the end of the week.
I see.
And that might be, I'm obviously the guy that's trying to sell knives, so I want people to buy more.
By the way, where can people get your knives?
Livengoodgrindhouse.com. I don't put my inventory up there a lot, so if you just follow me on Instagram, it's usually where I do most of my business, but I'm on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Reddit, which is a new one, which is very interesting.
Terrifying.
Only say good things about me on Reddit.
But arguing with idiots increases engagement.
Yeah, good for you. You're a better man than me.
It doesn't hurt my feelings because I know more about these things and I made them. So what the fuck do they know?
Do you ever venture into like the kitchen knife forums?
That's where I got my start in learning how to like trade in purchases. Buy, sell, trade.
Okay,
and that's how like most people in the knife world like enter, they get on the forums, they learn about, because there's a lot of information on there that not even chefs know, especially chefs don't know. And then you work your way into like getting that first thing that's popular, and then you can sell it to someone for a little bit of a loss, and then get something a little bit nicer, and just work your way up to the point where you realize internationally there's thousands and thousands of custom knife makers that are making knives one at a time to your exact specifications. And once you're into that world, it's really hard to appreciate, just the pictures. But like once you hold one, I mean, it's so much different.
Yeah.
Especially if it's wood that you picked. I've even like taken pieces of material from people, and it had no significance emotionally for me, but for them, it tied that a lot to them.
Like their ashes or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's actually, I mean, it has happened. I haven't done it.
This is my grandfather's handle. No,
Yeah.
it's my grandfather's in the handle.
Yeah. That's why I'm curious. Like,
There have been pets that have been crucibled into carbon steel to make knives for.
and
And
I
that
have a lucky rabbit spot.
Maybe just get a photo. Maybe a locket.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said a couple of interesting things that really piqued my interest. One, I thought about this is like, there's always that one person in the kitchen. Like chefs have a general knowledge of knives, but then there's that one person that knows everything about fucking knives. And everyone goes to that one and like, hey, can you sharpen my knife? Hey, what should I buy? Like that was you?
I sharpened everyone's knives in the kitchen.
Well, I think
Not for free.
well, here's what I would recommend to chefs that are out there, because there's always that one cook that also has like the crisp blue Brigard aprons that's always clean, right? And then there's the one chef that has the sharp knives. It's like, why don't you guys just, like, you don't like washing your aprons? I'll wash everyone's aprons. Yeah. You sharpen everyone's knives. Like,
start that side hustle.
Start a barter system
Yeah.
in the kitchen. And now everyone has sharp knives. Now everyone has clean aprons, and maybe a couple of other things. Like, hey, I'll be the chive guy or whatever, right? They cut the best chives. And I hate cutting chives or whatever. The barter system in the kitchen could go a long way. So I think that's interesting, because a lot of times, I know I had those people in my kitchen who's like, oh, they like fucking sharpening the antiques, because I never used them that much. But hey, you go for it. You go for it.
But nothing will upset a knife sharpener more than after a service, a dude's like, this thing's not sharp anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll go, I saw you cutting into a lamb bone with it. Like, it's not a lightsaber. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
Especially when the edge is so thick, like you've no concept of like maintaining the geometry of the knife, which actually does the cutting.
As a matter of fact, I think that's how I chipped my shun. Like the first time I bought a shun, I was like, I think I was butchering something. I hit a bone and it was like, boom, chipped. I was like, fuck, there we go. I just paid $200 for my shun.
Yeah. I think that's one thing you brought up a good point of, like, chefs don't understand, and a lot of early sharpeners too, is like geometry is what is the real deal. Like, that's what you need to understand. Like, it's not about sharpness, it's about geometry and like making that apex, make sense and like do its job. Versus like, oh, it's just really sharp. Like, well, no, there's like a lot more behind it. Like, I feel like I've learned more about geometry since I started this business than I ever did.
Can you geek out on that? So I have no idea. Like, and also the audience could probably really
Love to geek out on.
yeah geek out on geometry for a bit.
So, I mean, any kind of knife that you're buying that's coming from a factory, whether it's German or Japanese, Schunt, Henkel's, whatever it is, they're ground on a machine that can only grind something flat. So what you're basically making is an elongated triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not enough ease in separating that product, and it very quickly comes to a thickness of the steel that's going to crack that product open, and it's going to give it a feeling of it not being sharp, which really it just has bad geometry. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference between handmade knives like I'm doing and those is that I can control the convexity from the spine of the knife to the edge. So instead of it being flat, it's very slightly coming at the convex, so both sides kind of have a hump. Mm-hmm. And you can see it if you look at it down the choil. You can see that it almost looks flat, but if you were to set it down on a stone flat, it would only sharpen the edge.
Yeah.
So that is actually what is doing most of the cutting with the knife. Mm. And all of my cut testing, I never sharpen the knife until it's 100% finished. All the cut testing is done with a dulled edge. It would still cut your skin because it has burrs on it from the grinding. But I'm making sure that the geometry is doing the cutting and has nothing to do with the sharpness.
Yeah. So if you're sharpening, and a lot of people, they get excited when they move up in their grit. They're like started at 500 grit and they go up to 1,000, and then they go to like 3,000 and they cut paper and like, hell yeah, this is really sharp. Like a true test is if you can start your sharpening process on like a 220 or 300 grit, so a very coarse stone, and you can cut through paper super clean right after that, like then you're on the right route because you're understanding the geometry of the blade. So the convexity they was talking about helps give it a little bit more strength behind the apex, which is the actual cutting edge. And it's just going to help you the edge lasts a lot longer.
Now, talking about different types of steel, because that's a big question that has come up in the comments recently, is I guess if you could give us a primer on the different types of steel, and then when they should and shouldn't be used.
I think it's not really the steel that's important, it's the heat treatment that's important. Obviously, the difference between stainless and carbon is carbon will react to acids and oils, and it will develop a patina the same way a cast iron pan would rust really quickly if you were to scrub it with something abrasive. The patina in the pan is when you're, baking on the carbon out of the oil and it makes it black. The same thing happens over time. If you apply the proper amount of acids and don't let it rust, it gets black, develops patina. And especially nowadays, there's so much advances in metallurgy that, the thing back in the day is people were like, well, stainless steel feels gummy when I'm sharpening it. But I mean, nowadays, the playing field between high carbon steels and stainless steels is like, I would say stainless steels are much more advanced now. They're much harder, they get sharper, but that also is going to mean that your maintaining of them is going to be a lot more of a time investment as well.
Yeah, and it really depends. Like there's, like you were saying, there's so many different new like things being made from a metal perspective. Like there's, I think it's SLD is a really good example where it's kind of a combo.
What's SLD?
It's a type of metal that's used for knives, and so it's kind of this like nice hybrid of stainless and carbon. So it's really hard, but you get the low maintenance of stainless. And I think if you're a cook, especially working in the kitchen day in, day out, and either if you're new or if you're a more seasoned chef, like I would rather use a stainless knife in a kitchen I'm using all day and then save my carbon for homework or like specific tasks where it's not like a lot of daily use. I think like more often than not, knives that I get from chefs to sharpen, if they're carbon, they're like not destroyed, but like they're pretty fucked up. And so
chefs, are you listening?
I'm about to piss some people off.
Think back who you've been tagging on Instagram. Yeah, you. It might be me. Fuck. By the way, for people that don't know, you did a great job with my knives.
Thank you.
Yeah. You took I don't know how many knives I gave you, but you gave them back to me fucking razor sharp, beautiful.
Yeah.
They looked. I gave them to you like they needed some work. I hadn't been very active. They did. I haven't been active that much.
That was flour.
By the way, at home I have 2 sets.
Okay.
So that's like my professional set, and then I have a drawer with all Maiden knives.
Nice. Shout out to Maiden.
Shout out to Maiden because they hooked me up when I bought my house. They hooked me up and shout out to Maiden. I'll give them some love right now because they might be listening because you're on.
Chip, Jake sponsor the podcast.
Yes. Hint. They don't sponsor the podcast, so I might give a shout out to Heston. But all joking aside, when I bought my house, they sent me a housewarming gift.
Nice.
And they hooked me up like copper pots, pans, everything.
Dude, the copper line's sick.
Wine glasses, decanter, plates, everything. They completely took care of my entire kitchen. And then so I have 2 sets of Maiden knives. I have the red set and I have the black set. So it's like I use that. I have like a full drawer of like Maidens. Like it's easy when I'm cooking in the kitchen.
Yeah, those are good knives. I mean,
they're
10 made in France. It's like a 7th generation knife maker for their made, like pretty legit stuff.
I'm justifying the dust, but I mean, I'm justifying it. When it comes to knife maintenance, what are some of the most important things that chefs and cooks need to know when it comes to knife maintenance? Like, I guess the first question: how often should you be honing? How often should you be sharpening? And how often should you be cleaning? And what should you be cleaning with for maintenance? Especially when you have beautiful handles like this.
I think from like easiest thing is like make sure they're clean with soap and water and dry them immediately. Like don't run them through the dish pit. Don't run them through your dishwasher at home. It's just gonna destroy them and wear on them a lot harder or a lot quicker. From a honing perspective, I try to hone my knife every time I'm going to prep or every other time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of more in the camp now of using a strop just because I do use more Japanese knives. And so if you have prolonged use with a honing rod and you're not properly sharpening as well, you're going to start getting a kind of a curve in your blade because you're going to be doing it too hard and you're going to be doing it over and over, and it's actually going to remove metal over time. So I suggest getting a leather strop. It's going to be a lot less damaging to your knife over time than a steel. Granted, it's a little bit harder to like put in a knife roll and stuff, and you don't want to get it wet because it's leather. But especially if you have a lot more Japanese knives, definitely recommend getting a strop. And if you have wood handles, just buy some mineral oil, or if you want to go a little bit better, get tung oil, both super cheap to get. But that'll help condition your knife, the handle, keep it like looking better over time.
Mm-hmm. What about for those chefs that their knives have turned rusty?
Easiest thing, they sell these on Amazon. They're called like rust erasers.
They're little square things. Yeah, those are great.
$6. Get one of those. It'll last you your entire career. And just give that a little, with some water, a little wipe on the blade. That'll take the rust off super easily.
You can use steel wool as well.
Yeah.
Like quadrupolate, and it won't scratch it as much as those because they're kind of lower grit. There's 2 of them that you can buy. And it'll be very obvious that you've been scrubbing it with something that's super abrasive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have carbon steel knives and there's rust on it, it's not the end of the world. In fact, if you use like WD-40 and some quadrupolate steel wool, it will keep this dark patina and remove the rust. And since it already has those oxides on there, it's going to make it less reactive over time. So the more you can build up your oxides and the patina on the knife, the less reactive it's going to be.
Now, just going back on knife maintenance, when it comes to sharpening, there's a lot of sharpening kits on Amazon. They're like $10. And then there's some that are super expensive. So for people that don't know, what are some of the basics when it comes to purchasing a knife sharpening set? How would you advise people? Should they get the triangle stone with the mineral oil? Should they get the whetstone? Should they get the little V thing?
Yeah, don't get a pull-through sharpener, please. Pull-through sharpener will destroy your knife so fast. I stay away from any kind of oil stone. It gets messy and it's a pain in the ass. So like, don't waste your time with those. Get a whetstone. Depending on your budget, you can find, little combination stones on Amazon for $20. The downside of that is going to be there's a lot more ceramic filler in those, and there's not more of the aluminum oxide that's actually helping you doing the cutting process, like of the actual metal. So you can find a good middle ground of a $40 to $60 whetstone that you're going to have your entire career for the most part, or you're going to have it for at least 10 years after use. So I would say like find a middle ground on pricing. Go to like sharpeningsupplies.com or Knifeware or Chubo Knives. They're going to have a better quality stone than you're going to find on Amazon.
Chubo Knives, yeah.
Versus finding like an Amazon Basics thing that you're going to be pissed off because you're going to buy it and you're going to spend $20 and you think you're going to suck at sharpening because you're not going to get a result, but it's because it's a crappy stone. So
so walk people through the basics of how to sharpen your knife using a whetstone, if you guys wouldn't mind. Soaking it in water.
Well, to harpen back a little bit on the sharpening kit, if you're an executive chef and you're not providing your kitchen with the bare necessities to teach your cooks how to sharpen their knives, and you expect them to have sharp knives, well, if you don't know, how are they going to know? You're supposed to be teaching them everything that they're supposed to know. So if you can't afford one stone flattener, one setup to where you can put the stone on, and one combination stone that's in like the 400 to 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 range for your cooks, and then expect them to use it and maintain it, it's going to increase their discipline because it's giving them something that they have on top of their prep, which they need because they're all slow and they need to learn how to get in the shits and get out of it. And they're going to be doing what you want them to do, which is have sharp knives and do better knife skills. What was the next question?
I forgot.
No, the process of sharpening.
Yeah. So what is the process to prepare your whetstones for sharpening, and then what do you recommend during that process of sharpening?
I'll talk about stone maintenance, and then you can get into the sharpening. So if your stones are not flat, then your edge is not going to be straight, and it's not going to get as sharp as it can be because you don't have the ductile and psychic abilities to run your edge on a half pipe and keep that angle at 15 to 20 degrees the entire time. So with your stone, you should always have a flattener. The cheapest they come is something that's a lower grit type of material that your stone is made of, that has grooves for like all of the slurry and schluff that comes out of the stone. The best thing you can possibly get is something like a DMT diamond stone or an Atoma, which is a Japanese word, diamond stone that's in like the 120 to 140 grit range. And it's basically just a piece of aluminum with a sticky backing that has like these little pinpricks of diamonds on them and keep them flat. And what you want to do is you want to take the stone, take your pencil that you have in the kitchen anyways, and do a bunch of diagonal and then perpendicular lines to the diagonal and basically cross it up. And then when you start to flatten the stone, wash it off, and you're going to see the pencil mark that the stone is not touching. Well, that wouldn't be touching your edge either.
Yeah.
So, and then you can continue to flatten that until all the pencil is gone. And then since you've raised the height, lowered the height of that stone, all of the edges on the top of that stone are going to be really sharp. And if you're not good enough yet and you come over, you're going to chip your knife. So the last thing you should do after flattening is take a 45-degree angle on every single corner on the front, back, sides, and then also the corners as well. So you don't have anything that's going to bite into the knife if your angle gets a little wonky.
For people that are listening, I'll put up a little video of tutorial of you guys how to sharpen. I think that would be very cool, just so they could understand some of the techniques that we're talking about on the episode. So when it comes to sharpening, you're the man. You took care of my antiques, and a lot of other chefs around here. You're like the Austin knife guru. Every chef in my circle of influence, goes to you. But can you walk us through the process of basic knife sharpening?
For sure. Yeah. From a stone perspective, there's two different types. There's two different types of ceramic stones. You have a soaking stone and you have what is called splash and go. So soaking stones, they're more porous and you have to soak them for 10 minutes or so. Those are usually the cheaper ones that you can find. And then once you kind of get up into the $50 to $60 range, you're going to find ones that are splash and go. And so you can literally just kind of get them wet and you can start working. I recommend those because it's a little bit easier.
Do you know why that is?
I think it's just from like the composition, the ceramic and everything in there. Like lower end ones, you have to soak them longer. Because they like drink water, they'll get really like they're super porous compared to others.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend getting 2 stones for your basic maintenance, either a 220 grit or a 400 grit. So it's going to be a coarser stone, and that's where you're going to be doing the actual work of removing metal, because that's what sharpening is. It's removing metal to create an apex to make a sharp edge. And then a 1000 grit, and if you want, you can go get a third that's like a 2000 or 3000, but 1000 is usually like kind of a good stopping point.
You do not need 10,000 grit stone.
Yeah, don't buy a 10,000
unless you're
stone.
a professional and you want to make something cool.
But why? Like, explain why.
Well, because the teeth become so small, like the molecules of the steel, that it is sharp, but it won't bite into something soft like tomato skin. So even though it'll shave your hair off, you're like, oh, this is sharp. And then your chef grabs it to cut a tomato and he's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It's you've over polished those carbides to be extremely fine to the point where they're not toothy.
Got it. So you're saying start at this number. What are you saying stop at?
1000.
1000. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So,
Yeah, and think of on a microscopic level, think of an edge as like a saw. And if you have big teeth on your saw, it's really hard to cut through wood, right? So your goal, and that's what a dull knife is equivalent to. You have big, jagged teeth in your edge, and you want to refine them and make smaller ones. But to Kolter's point, you don't want to go too refined, because then you kind of like jump the shark a little bit, and it's going to be actually harder to cut through product that you need to cut through. So you're on your lower grit stone, you're removing metal to kind of help create a new apex. And you're technically scratching up the whole side of your edge, the actual bevel. It's going to be real cloudy, and that's fine. That's what you want, because that's the process of removing metal. You need that abrasive to kind of do the work for you. And then as you move up, you're polishing and refining. So 220 grit, maybe 300. And then, depending if you're right-handed or left-handed, it's kind of hard to do this on a podcast, but
the video up.
Yeah. But holding your knife, just like you would, like a pinch grip, like you're going to cut something. Angle, I think, is one of the most debated things in the knife world of like, if you have a Japanese knife, it needs to be 12 degrees. And if you have a Western, it needs to be 20. Like, you're never going to get an exact angle on doing a whetstone. Like, it's just impossible. So the easiest way I try to teach people is, you put your knife perpendicular on the stone, kind of leaned over halfway, so that's a 45-degree.
Right.
Cut that in half again, and then maybe go down just a hair, and you're probably in the 15 to 20-degree range. You can also put like a couple quarters into the blade to kind of give you an idea of like height, but it's never going to be exact. And then focusing on your edge and segment. So I teach a edge trailing technique. So you're pushing away, the edge is trailing away from you as you're sharpening on the stone. And there's so many different techniques and ways to learn. Like I've studied so many different types of sharpening. There's people that are going to say that what I'm saying is absolutely incorrect, or they're going to say this is a better way. And I think like,
yeah, I know.
They're
all going to be in the comments.
Yeah,
right
they're
now,
going to
like,
be destroying me.
Yeah,
and they're all right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they're all
right.
right. They're all right, right? And in a way, they probably are
For
too,
sure,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And my philosophy is like, I found a technique that is most comfortable for me and gets the best result. And I think that's what I try to teach people. Like, hey, like if I'm doing classes, I'll kind of go through the style that I do. And I'm like, hey, like if you feel like you need to change your hand position a little bit or whatever, like I can help coach you through that. But if it's going to make you feel more comfortable and still get a good edge, like boom, like do that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like.
It's funny. I remember you put up a video and there was another knife guy that came on there like, oh, don't listen to him. He's doing it wrong. I was like, holy shit, this is like all day long. It's like chefs talking about sauce. When I'm like, wow, that's not how you make a proper brown sauce or whatever.
There's so many opinions.
There's so fucking opinions are like assholes, right?
Yep.
They all stink. And everyone has one.
And they're great at sharpening, but they can't cook.
Yeah.
Well, what does their opinion matter?
Yeah. You see, this knife right here is beautiful. There's a video I saw. I mean, I've seen it before, but I saw it again yesterday, where this guy's holding a hot dog in his mouth, and this guy slices his nose off with the samurai sword.
Wait, that's a super old YouTube video. Yeah, I remember that.
He's like a drunk party. And, for people that are listening, I don't know how you're going to search for it, but it's a guy holding a hot dog in his mouth, and his head's tilted back, and his friend has a fucking Hattori Hanzo sword, and he's like, let me slice the hot dog right out of your mouth, but he ends up slicing the guy's fucking nose off.
Oh, it's a brutal video.
That's bad knife work.
Yeah, but it looks like, I mean, it's beautiful. That's why I was looking at this one. It looks like that. This knife is beautiful. Do you ever, with intention, and I want to talk about knife making for a little bit, but with intention, do you ever make knives that are like, yes, you could use it, but you probably shouldn't?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's because I've only been marketing my business for a year and been making knives for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I built up this big stock, and my philosophy in everything is really to like do the hardest possible thing you can do, because that's going to teach you the most.
Mm.
So instead of just making like the most basic chef's knives, you know, my first really big project was I made a knife that looks like an electric guitar.
Yeah.
So it looks like the top head of the knife is like angled like a flying V guitar.
Yeah.
And into the full tang of the knife, I drilled and tapped for tuning pins that you could remove if you wanted to do it.
If you send me an image, I'll put it up in the show.
I'll send it to you.
See it, yeah.
Yeah. And I actually just sent that off to a professional photographer because he reached out, because I do all my own photography.
Yeah.
But he's like big into After Effects and everything. And we just connected, and he was like, if you ever need a knife photograph, I'll do it for free. And I was like, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to send you my most expensive one. Don't mess it up. Have fun. But yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of room for like really conceptual stuff in the knife world.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at like the Japanese philosophy, even though they're not using, you know, knives that look like electric guitars in their sushi restaurants, they have one knife that does one job per night.
Mm-hmm.
And that knife probably costs them thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But if it fills that creative need to inspire them on that particular piece of product to make it absolutely perfect, then everyone should have that philosophy. Because like how you present yourself in the kitchen, at least the kitchens I did, is really, you know, how you work. If you're not clean, your station's not going to be clean. If your knives aren't sharp, your product's going to be bad. And if your knives look like shit, your food and your cooking and your mentality and everything is going to tumble after that. So, I mean, as much as I want to tell young cooks, you know, start humble, but like, don't be afraid to get into something that's going to put you over your head in terms of maintenance and, you know, keeping it looking beautiful. Because that's literally what cooking is like if you just step into a kitchen and you could do 3 Michelin star cooking in the first week, like what was the point of even doing it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you learn a lot about knives and how to use them by having stuff that takes more maintenance, takes more work. It's not like my knives are like, you know, a Toyota Hilux where you never have to change the oil and it's going to run all the time. Mine's more like a race car where like, if you rev it to 12,000 RPMs, you're going to have to change the oil and it's going to take more work, but it's the type of people that want to put that and like take all aspects of their career and just like turn it up to the next level. That's what this stuff is for.
How much is that electric guitar knife?
It's unsellable, to be honest.
It's not sellable.
I mean, I would take like 2,000 for it, and that sounds like a lot of money to people listening, but
10,000.
70 hours of work.
Well, and then they buy it, and then like they got a frozen case of veal bones.
And they destroy it in one swipe.
If you're thinking about doing that with something like that, then you shouldn't own it, and I won't sell it to you.
But the problem is there's a lot of young kids that have, mommy and daddy's money, and I need an expensive knife. I need to have the most expensive knife because I'm going to go work at a 3 Michelin star kitchen right after culinary school.
Yeah.
Let me buy that
I
one.
think social media has made it a lot worse too, because you get marketed. I mean, I guess obviously knives are in my algorithm and stuff, but like I see it on my other accounts, like personal account, where it's like you get all these ads for these super flashy knives that are Japanese made or whatever, or at least that they're trying to propose it as, and like people get caught up in it and they buy them and they're just shit knives. And it's like, if you are getting a lot of ads about knives, I would take some pause.
Yeah. Those are very new companies. They're getting factories that they've never visited to make stuff that just looks pretty good.
They're buying it from what's the Chinese Amazon
Temu.
Yeah, and they're just drop shipping it.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, you were telling me that like you guys get shadow banned. Is that true?
Yeah, it started in the knife community, I guess, a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Right around the pandemic. That's about when it started.
Yeah, because Instagram or Facebook Meta, they started, tightening on guidelines of products and stuff that can be featured in videos, and knives started getting tagged as weapons. So knife makers, knife sharpeners, knife enthusiasts, all of our content started getting blocked. Like you'd post a reel and it would get blocked and you have to appeal it, and then you could obviously never talk to a human being to like make your case. So it's
not a human being that's blocking it.
Right.
It's an AI.
So it's only when you're talking about knives. But like chefs are showing themselves chopping all day.
It doesn't happen as much when you're using it as a tool. It's when you're displaying it in what could be deemed threatening, which is it's in your hand and you're a human being.
Yeah.
So that could become a weapon. So like they literally in the description of why it's only being shown to your followers and not to non-followers is like weapons manufacturing. I've even seen someone post something that said it was for like sexual exploitation, and it was nothing other than them like holding a knife and showing a knife.
I mean, I could see why they would think that.
Yeah, sexy as hell.
So yeah, it's been hard for people to like grow organically. Like even mine, like my organic growth has been super tough in the last year or so. Even though my business has grown a lot, like if I'm not running some sort of ad, like my engagement growth, like will be diminished, which is annoying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like the paid for engagement model has really taken off since they introduced the blue check mark that you could pay for.
Yeah.
I not to get into social media analytics, but I remember my account was growing, and the day that they put out the blue check mark that you could pay for, because I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna fucking pay for that. The day that they put it out, I saw my engagement drop by like 80%, just overnight. I was like, this is fucking crazy.
Yep.
Crazy. I can't believe that they, I mean, that's fucking stupid. These are beautiful knives. You're talking to chefs about a tool. It's not a fucking weapon. I guess it could be a weapon.
Yeah.
But you're trying to run a business, and your business is making knives for chefs to cook.
Right.
Or for to display. It's fucking insane.
And it sounds like just a surface level problem, but that can eventually become, especially in the UK, there's been cooks and chefs that have been detained for carrying their knife kits to work, just in transportation. Mm-hmm. And that'll eventually turn into, well, now the restaurant owns your knives. You can't have personal knives. You have to lock them up and take inventory at the end of the night. And then the tips can't be tippy. They just like rounded. And like the first video I posted when I came back to social media to tell people that I've become a knife maker was this big dramatic video of me making something. And it was the dumbest knife. It looks like a big butter knife. And it was kind of a protest as, well, if I'm going to get into this world, I'm going to give them the middle finger and say, well, is this what you want people to be using to make your food? Because I know you all like restaurants, and if you diminish their ability to do their job by making them use rounded tips and rounded heels and lock their knives up in the other, you're going to starve, because people will not want to do that. It'll be like cooking in a prison kitchen, and we don't want that.
How did you even get into knife making? Because you were cooking. You were in some great restaurants.
Yeah. So I went through like the forum process and got into handmade Japanese custom stuff, and that eventually led me into finding people that you know, make knives one at a time, like custom knives. And uh, this was back in 2014 or 15 when my fast casual opened, and I got my first like one of my first like big fancy knives, and I posted, doing some like micro Brunoise on a dirty ass nylon cutting board, and like it got picked up by like 9gag and got like millions of views, and I just started like getting the ball rolling. I was like, oh dang, this could be a second revenue stream or something. The only revenue stream that ended up being is I worked with a Swedish company called Damasteel that makes super high tech stainless Damascus, and I would go to trade shows with them and do like knife demonstrations to show how sharp and how much the edge is maintained on these really high tech knives, and ended up doing like a knife show at my restaurant, which was one of the first chef knife only gatherings that was like pay to come, and I got paid in knives. So I started to get all of these things, and it was always in the back of my head like, well, I'm maintaining them and they look brand new, so people are telling me, oh, you're really good at that. And it was always kind of in the back of my head like, oh, maybe it's something I can do. And then COVID-19 came along, and being a chef didn't feel like an option anymore because I wasn't employed as a chef at the time.
Yeah.
And then I escaped back to Dallas and became an electrician, and now that's wearing on my nerves. And a couple of years ago, I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to take everything I've learned in construction. I'm going to renovate my garage, put in a bunch of plugs, lights, vacuum, HEPA filtered dust collection system, buy a bunch of tools I don't know how to use. But what I do know is geometry. And that's the most important part of the knife. So I was just chasing the geometry of the knives that I had used, and slowly but surely came upon things that can actually be called a well-performing tool.
That's wild. I guess this is a question for both of you, but in the process of what you do, so sharpening or knife making, is it therapeutic? Or is it stressful? I mean, from an outsider, it sounds like, oh, that sounds like you're fucking, for me, it's like skimming stock all day.
Yeah. I like to equate it to if anybody plays golf, where it is the most frustrating, but also very rewarding at times. So sharpening can be very stressful if you're hitting snags or you have like a knife that's really, it's really hard to work on. There's a lot of damage, or whatever. And it can be stressful because you want to get it perfect. You want to get it better than new. That's the goal. I want it to be better than it was when you open the box, always. And so that process can be like tiresome, frustrating. It's hot. Like I'm doing this in my workshop in my garage. Like summers are hot as hell in Texas. But then at the same time, sitting on a whetstone can be very zen, and you got music playing and you're very locked in, and it's awesome. So it's both for me for sure.
Yeah. And it depends on the process. Grinding on a 2x72-inch belt grinder, which is like a bulk of the work to take it from just a blank into a cutting instrument. It's butt puckering the entire time, because you're not only having to worry about, catching the edge and having it thrown out of your hands, maintaining the cool temperature of the steel is extremely important, because anything over 250 degrees is going to affect the temper of the steel, which the tempering is after hardening. The steel is like glass. Tempering it relaxes it, keeps some of the hardness, but ups the toughness and the corrosion resistance. And you'd be extremely shocked at how fast steel heats up on the grinder, even at a lower grit like 36, which is the primarily where most of the grinding is done. If I'm not using like a ice water misting system to keep it cool, it'll immediately burn my thumb, and that's how I know it's like, okay, that's near 250 degrees if it's hurting my skin. And then if you get too hot, it'll go blue, and that's how you know you've ruined the temper. And especially when you start to get really, really thin, if I get a blue somewhere in the center of the edge, then I have to grind the entire profile up and start again. Luckily, the most time where it happens is where it's really thin, like at the heel or at the tip. And what most knife makers say is like, you never fuck up a knife, you just make a smaller knife.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Luckily, I've never had to make that many smaller knives.
Yeah.
Maybe by a couple of millimeters.
How many knives do you think you've made up to this point?
37.
37. Wow.
Yeah, I have them all in a folder, one by one.
Yeah.
Well, how many have I finished? 37, because I based it off, if I've taken pictures of it, it was worth taking pictures of.
Okay.
And other than that, I might have like 3 or 4 that are sitting in my drawer, like that could be finished in the future. Yeah. But, it's better than having a huge stack of messed up shit.
Yeah, I'm I'm retired as a chef. But if I ever go back and open up, some, have some hero side quests and open up some restaurants, which I mean, it's not that I'm opposed to it. I mean, I have restaurants that I would like to open in my mind that I never had the opportunity to run. That would be fun. Um, it would be like that scene in Kill Bill. I'm going to come to you. Like, can I get a Hanzo sword?
Oh yeah. And hopefully by that point I'll be forging and like it'll actually be like real Hanzo style.
So when we wrap up the show, since you guys are knife makers, and I know both of you have worked in kitchens too, but I think people would be more interested in your knife opinions right now. I'm going to ask you some random knife questions for the culinary audience that's listening. If you had, and I'm curious on both your opinions, by the way, each question. If you could buy a branded chef knife out there, or it doesn't have to be a chef knife, but if you could buy branded knives, and you were going to direct people to, hey, you could afford this, go get it.
Yep.
What's the brand?
I'm gonna say Mac.
Yeah.
Japanese made, Swedish steel, really good maker, easy approachable price point. Kolter, I feel like he's gonna say no to that, but I don't know the way he's reacting.
I'm having trouble thinking of one that I would recommend.
But yeah, I think they're really quality knives, great for chefs.
Yeah, I like Mac, by the way. I have a couple of Mac
They're
knives.
super
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, it's going to be more on the expensive side, but it certainly is a factory branded product. They have a lot of handmade knives, but Matsumoto Sohoten, which you're not going to have heard of, but they're Western styled knives are as close as you're going to get to like a high performance Japanese handmade knife in a factory product, because they are making them hundreds and hundreds at a time. And you're going to still pay like closer to the $200 mark, maybe $250 for something that's like 270 millimeters or 11 inches. But that's probably what I would go with, and I definitely have owned a few in my days.
What's the one knife that you can't part ways with?
Style?
Your personal knife.
My personal knife?
Yeah.
So one of the knives I got as a gift is from a knife maker named Don Wynn, and he is by far probably one of the most influential knife makers, not only in my life, but a lot, because he brought this Formula One style to knives that he makes that just like completely broke the mold of what everyone else was doing. And I got a knife made by him out of Damasteel. So it's a particle metallurgy, Swedish Damascus that they make by hand in Sweden. It's extremely expensive. And it has all this carbon fiber and gold dust inlaid into the handle and the saya, the scabbard that it comes with. And we called it Hostile Kitchen. And it's just like this tall heel that comes into this dangerous upswept point. It's got this clip tip on the spine that looks like a fighting Bowie knife. And I think he said that if he were to have to make that again, because it was hard, because it's an incredible knife, he would probably have to sell it for something like $10,000.
Wow.
So even though I only own 2 knives from my days of being a collector, because I took some time off and sold them and paid for my life that way,
Yeah.
that's one I'll probably never, ever get rid of. The only thing that would promote me to get rid of that is I would give it back to him.
That's cool.
What about you?
I would say I have a Bunko from Doghouse Forge, which is based in, I believe it's Georgia. But it was my first like big money knife that I ever bought, and I used my sharpening money because it was just a side hustle at the time, and I didn't know what the fuck I was gonna do with this little business because I was in marketing at the time, and so I was just kind of saving money that I was getting from sharpening to like upgrade my gear from like whetstone perspective or whatnot. And then I was like, I'm gonna use this money to buy a really badass knife, and it was like $375. But I fucking love it. Beautiful, like burl handle. Like it's just awesome blade that I use all the time. So yeah, Doghouse Forge, really awesome brand.
And if you were going to give advice to young cooks, young chefs out there that want to start collecting knives, what advice would you tell them how to get started?
Don't collect them.
Okay. What?
Just kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, think about like, I think you need to like focus on practicability for like, what knives are you gonna actually use, and then maybe have a couple splurge knives if you really want to show off. You know what I mean? But like, you don't need to be spending a ton of money. Like, focus on the craft first, and like make sure it's gonna be a knife that you actually use, and kind of upgrade from there.
Yeah.
And then maybe have a couple.
Yeah, the knife skills sometimes matter more than the knife, or
For sure.
for a lot of chefs. I know the customer doesn't care what brand you used. They just want to make sure that it was cut correctly and cooked
Right.
correctly. And sometimes it's like I joke around sometimes, and you never hear the customer say, "Shout out to certain people," but you never hear the customer say like, "Fuck, their food would probably be better if they had better aprons." If their aprons were cooler, they'd probably cook better. But no one ever says that.
No.
And it's the same thing. That expensive knife is not going to fucking do the cutting for you. You still have to have proper knife skills. You have to know how to brunoise or butcher, whatever the case may be. But I'll tell you, it does make a difference when you have an excellent knife for
sure.
some of that work.
Yeah.
You know, one of my chefs had come from Le Bernardin. I had Adrienne Cheatham on recently. She was the executive sous chef at Le Bernardin. And this chef that worked for me said, for fish cutting at Le Bernardin, they always recommended a medium sharp knife, not too sharp, because if it's too sharp, and I know I've experienced this, you'll go right through some spine or some bones. But with a medium sharp knife, you'll get a little resistance that you need to cut around them, which I thought was always a very interesting way to frame it, and it was something that I took with me. So all my knives were always just medium sharp to dull.
Yeah, it was on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm having a lot of
especially butchery knives.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would not, make myself a boning knife if I was going to break down a bunch of tenderloins. I would get a Victorinox that had soft stainless steel, get an aggressive hone so I can keep teeth on it, and maybe sharpen it once every couple of weeks.
That fucking white handle.
Yeah. Don't scoff at Dexter and
I'll get
the Dexter. Like the Dexter fucking boning knife is.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need. Like, especially with bread knives too. I'm like, don't get a fancy bread knife. If you need a serrated knife, just
I
get
stabbed a guy in the kitchen with a boning knife once.
On purpose?
On accident. So it was one of these boning knives that had been handed down like from a butcher to a butcher, and it was like the thin, paper thin, flexible boning knife. You could do that. And I was butchering on my station because I was in the shits, and I was also working the saute station, so I had to turn around and butcher, and turn around and saute, and then going back to butcher. So I had my knife in my hand, and I was holding it while I'm sauteing. I'm holding it behind me, and this cook walks up to me like, "Oh, what are you cooking?" And he walks right into my knife. And I feel it go into his leg. Like, I feel it go a couple of inches into his leg, and he's like, "Ooh," and then he pulls it out. And I just remember thinking like, fuck, I'm going to get in so much trouble. But I was thinking about getting in trouble more than I was worried about him. And I'll never forget, like, this dude was a gangster. He's like, older Hispanic guy. He's like, all good. Fucking ties it up. Fucking goes back to his station and like fucking kept working.
But did you feel the soul of the knife transfer to him because of his blood?
Or did you get his soul?
I took a little bit of his soul with me. It was like, it was bananas. It was fucking wild to feel a knife go into someone on accident. And I was like, ooh.
It happens a lot easier than you think it. not that I'm not I have stabbed myself in the thigh, but it was.
This is fun. Where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to buy some knives? Where can people follow along?
Study the Blade for Instagram and TikTok, and then studytheblade.com. So knife sharpening, knife restoration, pretty much anything you need. I do mail-in service as well if you're out of Austin, and I teach classes also. So if you want to learn basics, hit me up, teach you how to get rolling.
Cool.
Livengoodgrindhouse.com. And Livengood_grindhouse on Instagram, and just DM me if you want something special.
Awesome. These knives are beautiful. People need to DM you and get that guitar that guitar knife. Yeah. This has been fun. Thanks, gents.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, so here's a little intro sharpening video. First, and arguably most importantly, is your setup. You don't want to be sharpening on a prep table that wobbles back and forth, right? So here we have a nice sturdy table. I've got a plastic hotel pan. Reason the plastic's best is because it's actually flat on the bottom, whereas a lot of aluminum stainless pans are slightly rounded, and you want a nice firm base so when you're pushing and pulling, it doesn't slide back and forth. So let's start with flattening this sharpening stone, because that's extremely important to get a nice, straight, consistent edge. And I do this every time I sharpen. Sometimes after as well, just to save time the next time I'm here to sharpen. So just get yourself a nice piece of graphite, pencil lead, whatever it is. Some people use Sharpie, but I don't, because it soaks in, and you're going to have to grind a lot more of the stone away to get the marks out. All right, so I have a diamond flattening plate. Just get it wet. Do a few passes, cover every square inch of the stone, and check the work. It's very predictable that most of your scratches left over, or your pencil is going to be somewhere in the center. Just a little bit left here. Having a nice sponge in your setup is also good too. Wiping the knife clean, getting a good amount of water up on your stones. So now all the pencil's gone. But you see we're left with some very sharp edges at the front and the back. So just at a 45-degree angle, doesn't have to be perfect. Just take those sharp corners off. And then hit each corner as well. Now our stone's ready to sharpen. All right, here I have a big old chef's knife. First thing I'm gonna do is make sure it's dry. Then I'm gonna take a Sharpie, and I'm gonna Sharpie along the edge, about the thickness of the tip of the Sharpie itself. If you're sharpening and all of this Sharpie is being ground away by the stone, your angle on the knife is way too acute. So you're probably below 15 degrees. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find somewhere between 15 and 20 degrees, which if you lay the knife down flat, come up to 45, and then do that somewhere in the center, that's about where you want to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do one nice long stroke a few times. I'm going to get that water off. As you can see, I have a very thin band of ground steel. So that's how I know my angle's good. If I was any higher, it'd be a little bit smaller. But if I was any lower, which is what you don't want to do, it's the biggest mistake when you're scratching up the knife all up here when you're trying to sharpen. If you're trying to thin the bevel, then scratching, you know, an inch behind that Sharpie mark is okay. But we're talking about finding an apex in the steel. So this very thin line is what I want to maintain. And I don't want to grind away the rest of that Sharpie mark. Now that I've established my angle, and I know my angle's good based off of this nice shiny primary bevel, what we're doing when we're sharpening is we're trying to create a burr. So when I'm sharpening on this side, this burr is going to curl up on this side. So I'm going to try to use as much as the stone as I can. I'm going to pick that angle using light pressure, especially on this stone, which is 220 grit. You do not have to be that aggressive unless you have a very fat edge knife. I'm just going to go all the way down And I'm going to start checking for the burr. So we were sharpening this way, which means the burr is coming up on this side. So when I check, I face that ground line towards me, and I feel like this. And when you start to feel a burr, it's going to tug against your skin. And I can already feel a very small burr forming on this side, mostly at the tip, which is where the steel is usually thinnest. And down here, I know I have some work to do, but then I start to feel a little bit of grab in my skin up towards this point. And you see how fast that was? Well, that's because I have a very thinly ground knife. This is a very high performance knife. Your knives, if they're very well used and sharpened a lot, you're going to have to grind a lot more to get that burr. But as long as your angle is consistent, that's the most important thing. 15 degrees, 20 degrees, 25 degrees, it doesn't matter. As long as you're consistent, you just need to form an apex. And all the angle is being controlled with my backhand, while my left hand is just providing pressure above that edge. Very light pressure, especially at the lower grit stones. And after a few passes, I'm going to start feeling for the burr. Start to feel it right about right here. And I feel it all the way up to the tip. So I know I just have a little bit of more work to do down here. Sometimes the grit of the stone can feel like a burr, so keeping the knife nice and clean is important. There we go, I feel a burr there, all the way up. It's nice and consistent, not taking off too much steel, because you want to sharpen as little as possible to form the apex, or you're just going to kill the life of your knife. Now we're going to do the other side. A lot of times your fingers is going to take off the Sharpie, so just keep applying it to make sure you're not sharpening at too low of an angle. So this is the back side of the knife. You can see it's all Sharpie. Then I'm just going to take my angle and just in one nice fluid stroke, almost like you do on a honing rod. And then I'm going to check it just to make sure that I'm only taking off a little sliver at the edge, and I'm not hitting down here. Now it's almost to the end. There we go. Nice, thin grind line. Now how you do your backside edge, you can do it so many different ways. I just face the spine directly towards me. I use my index finger and my thumb on the spine to keep that angle. And then as I get closer to me, I point the edge away from me. Because my pressure is on the pull stroke, not on the pushing stroke. I'm like pushing, 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 letting off, pushing, letting off, pushing, letting off. Making sure I'm not grinding any of that Sharpie away. It's looking very consistent and good. Since I just did a couple of passes, remember the burr forms on the opposite side you're sharpening. And on the second side, you should be developing a burr much quicker. And I know I have some more work to do up at the tip because the burr is pretty pronounced all the way up until about these front 2 inches. There we go, burr at the tip, burr down, 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 good. Nice, consistent. You can see all my Sharpie's still there except for that little hairline grind mark. After you've gotten a burr on both sides, we're going to do what's called stropping, which is just one clean motion at the exact same angle you were sharpening at. Heel to tip, tip to heel, doesn't really matter. But on this side, I start at the tip. Nice light pressure. You do not have to, if the knife is flexing under the force of how you're stropping, then you're using too much pressure. Do like 4 on that side. This side I feel like it's more comfortable to go heel to tip. Just in one nice motion. Smaller knives you can just do this one-handed. But I usually have a support hand at the tip for longer knives because this is a pretty big knife. That was about 4. Now we're going to do 3. It's nice, light pressure, consistent angle. What we're doing is we're evening out the grind on the edge, because when you're pushing like this, it's not super consistent, but it's the most efficient way. So now we're just smoothing out that bevel by doing clean strokes. Two, 1, 1. And we're also doing is we're working that burr back and forth to make it weaker. And so since our last stroke was like this, we know that burr is up on this side. So we're going to deburr on the stone on this last one. So we're going to take the exact same angle as our sharpening and stropping angle, and I'm just going to trace one thin line. That way I'm pulling the burr off the edge. And you can sometimes see the burr when you do that, but here it's just dark metal flakes. So we're going to do that again. Come in this direction, nice and light. Deburr. Nice and light. Deburr. Clean and dry everything off. Give the stone a little flatten for next time. Then we're going to go up and grit. All right, so I'm jumping to a very fancy 800 grit diamond stone. But if you're coming off a 220, you might need to go to a 500 and then to an 800. But since this is diamond abrasive, it's aggressive enough yet fine enough so that I can make that big jump. The reason I have this is because the amount of time that I'm spending sharpening should be very short to be efficient. But you don't need super fancy stones. You can just get, normal Japanese soaking stones. I'd say 220, 500, 800, 1200, and that's probably all you need for culinary applications.
And the higher the grit of the stone, the longer it's going to take to form a burr. I usually do 3 or 4 full passes of the edge. Then start checking for a burr. And I already have a nice fine burr because this stone is very nice. It might take you longer. And we'll switch to the other side. And feel for the burr on the opposite side. Very small one. So we're going to keep going. A little bit more, get that burr a little bit more pronounced. There we go. Now we're going to strap again. Nice, light, long, consistent strokes. Your stone sounds gritty, clean it off. I'm going to deburr.
And about the 800 grit, I'm going to start checking the edge. 800 grit's pretty aggressive. A few different ways you can check the edge. One is on your thumbnail. And when you pull on the thumbnail, it should get stuck in your thumbnail. Obviously, do not push very hard. You're just barely pulling on it. That did not scare the shit out of me. So we're just pulling to see if it gets stuck in the nail. Another way is you use these 3 pads of your fingers, and your skin should not slide on the edge. Be very gentle. What you're looking for is the edge is grabbing your skin, and it's not easy to slide. And that feels pretty good. So now we're going to go up and grit.
No, I'm jumping to a 4,000. It's a very unique 4,000. You don't have to go much higher than 1,200 or 2,000. But this one has a high level of polish and refinement, yet keeps the edge aggressive enough for culinary tasks.
If you want a good place to shop for sharpening stones, I'd suggest JapaneseKnifeImports.com or SharpeningSupplies.com. Sharpeningsupplies.com is going to have a huge, overwhelming selection, but there's a lot of reviews on there. You can also go on Reddit or kitchen knife forums to get people's input on what sharpening stones to get. But at the end of the day, you just need something that has a good review that's not too expensive for your budget.
So now it's nice and flat. Now we do the same thing. Try to keep that same consistent angle that you had when you started. Sometimes I start with the tip at the front of the stone and on the heel. Sometimes I'll switch it up just to use every square inch of the stone so it wears evenly. Do the tip at the front. As long as your angle's consistent, your pressure's consistent, it's not too aggressive. Doesn't really matter. And again, the higher grit you go, the longer it's going to take to form that burr. So once I'm on a finishing stone, I'll usually wait 6, 7, 8 full passes of the edge to start checking for the burr. And up at your finishing stone level, the burr's going to be very, very slight. So it's important to clean everything off so you make sure you're not just feeling grit from the stone. And towards the heel, it feels very smooth, but up here towards the tip, it's grabbing my skin just a little bit. There. Slight, and then it starts to taper off, and then down here, it's very slight. So I know I'm good from here up, so now I'm just going to focus on this heel section. There we go. Nice and consistent all the way up. Clean it off, clean the knife off. Start on the other side. Down for the burr. Not much at the tip, a little bit here in the center, not much at the heel. So I'm going to focus on the heel. And then the tip. Feeling pretty good, very slight. At least it's feeling even, so I'm just going to spend a little bit more time to make that burr a little more pronounced. Alright, it's feeling pretty good. Clean the stone off. Clean the knife off. Now strap in and deburr. Especially when the stones get up to a higher grit, you want to be very light pressure. Because even though the stones feel the same hardness, because they're just bricks, the abrasives in the higher grit stones are very aggressive, so if you push too hard on them, you can create microchips in your edge. Get that grit off there.
I'm going to deburr on the stone. Now that I'm confident that it's nicely deburred, I'm going to make sure that everything's real clean again, and I'm going to go real lightly, keeping that same angle, just alternating. All right, just gonna dry this puppy off.
Next up is optional.
And I'm gonna take this over to a leather strop. This has 3-micron diamond paste in it, but you can just use bare leather. And you're gonna do the same stropping motion, which will just take off any additional burr. And the ultimate test is a little paper towel, see if I did a good job. And just cutting it's not good enough. When you're cutting paper, you're cutting paper towel, like really listen to the edge. And I can tell that somewhere here in the middle, it's being pretty grabby. Like right around there. So I'm just going to continue to strop, really light pressure. There we go. Feels and sounds a lot better.
No spawn drink in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction, stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, class is in session.